In your life, you've probably heard this combination of words many times: the most wanted people on the FBI list. Who these people are remains a mystery to us. We hear a combination of these words, we imagine some abstract criminals, but in reality these are not some mythical fictional people, but the same real thing as each of us. At the moment, namely April 2022, if you go to the official website of the FBI, the section with the 10 most wanted criminals will look like this. If we leave out 2 people involved in drug cartels, then for information that leads to the capture of each of the criminals, the FBI is offering a reward of $100,000, and for only one of these 10, a reward is being offered twice as much. Looking at the photos of these people, you can try to guess who they are talking about. Before revealing the identity of the anti-hero of the video, I will first tell you what crime he committed. On the morning of November 29, 2004, an armored cash-in-transit vehicle pulled up to an AMC movie theater in Phoenix, Arizona, and a 24-year-old man named Robert Palomares got out. He headed to the cinema to collect the weekend's proceeds. The man spent about 10 minutes inside before going outside. However, as soon as he did this, 6 loud shots were heard. Because of the shooting, 911 received several phone calls. Within minutes, both police and doctors were at the scene. On the road near the exit of the cinema lay the bloody body of incassator Robert Palomares. The man was wearing a bulletproof vest, but it did not help, since 5 of the 6 bullets fired hit Palomares in the head. Palomares himself was also armed, but the attacker acted so quickly that Palomares did not even have time to get his pistol. On the same day, the wounded man was taken to the hospital, where he died a couple of hours after his injuries. I think the motive for the attack was obvious to everyone: it was the money that the collector was carrying from the cinema. The criminal chose a very lucky day, because it was Monday, which means that the cinema stored proceeds for several days, or rather for the weekend, which this time overlapped with one of the most beloved holidays by Americans, Thanksgiving. Thus, on the day of the attack, the collector had to take one of the largest revenues of the year from the cinema. More specifically, it was $56,000, which, taking into account inflation in our time, is approximately $100,000. Of course, the police tried to find the attacker in hot pursuit. This did not seem difficult, because the attack had a lot of eyewitnesses, as well as recording from a surveillance camera near the cinema. Let me remind you that this was in 2004, so the quality of the recording left much to be desired. It was impossible to see the attacker's face, it was only clear that he was wearing something like a hoodie with a hood on his head. In such a situation, we had to rely on eyewitness testimony. They described the attacker as a Hispanic man, 25 to 30 years old. Unfortunately for the police, they were unable to find an assailant with that description, but they did find another critical piece of evidence, namely an abandoned bicycle. The police already had an assumption that the attacker fled the scene in a light vehicle and the bicycle was suitable for this like nothing else. By the way, he would hardly have been discovered so quickly if the helicopter had not taken part in the search. However, as in this situation, the found bicycle could help identify the attacker, because it could belong to anyone. Well, before this, it would seem that the criminal, who had calculated everything down to the smallest detail, made an incredibly ridiculous mistake: he left fingerprints on the abandoned bicycle. Perhaps he thought that they were not in the police database, but he was wrong. At this stage, it's time to make your guess as to who the found bicycle belonged to. Well, that man was Jason Derek Brown. So who is he? Well, Jason Brown was born on July 1, 1969. As it is not difficult to calculate, at the time of the attack he was 35 years old. Little is known about his early life. As for his relatives, he had a complete family: mother, father, brother, and sister. After school, he entered the International Business Institute. Then he spent 2 years in Paris, France, serving in the Mormon Church. After Jason returned from France, he began to think about making money. So, gradually he managed to open two companies. One was engaged in the resale of toys, and the second was the supply of golf equipment. Both companies were based in Utah and Jason ran them remotely from Arizona. Things were going well, because over time the man bought himself almost all the attributes of a luxurious life: 2 new cars, a Cadillac and a BMW, several motorcycles, and even a boat. People who knew him spoke of Jason as a cheerful man who did not particularly watch his spending. Knowing all this, the question arises, why would such a wealthy person take such a risk? Why did he commit this attack? The answer is quite banal: his entire luxurious life was nothing but an illusion for those around him. His companies did not generate significant income, on the contrary, they were unprofitable, and one of them was even already bankrupt. Those luxury goods that Jason had were bought by him on credit. He received any real money only from small fraudulent banking schemes. It is likely that by November 2004, Jason Brown had come to the edge of his financial abyss, which likely pushed him to commit such a blatant robbery. The FBI later found out that shortly before the attack, Jason purchased a Glock .45 caliber pistol. By the way, this is one of the largest calibers for a pistol. After this, Jason began taking shooting lessons at a local shooting range. The instructor described him as a not very pleasant young man who was not particularly careful in handling weapons. This even led to Jason accidentally shooting a bullet into a pickup truck parked in the parking lot of the shooting range. No one was hurt. Jason promised to pay the owner of the pickup truck $1,300 for the damage caused. It was at the time of purchasing the gun that Jason left his fingerprints, which later ended up with the police. From all of the above, the picture emerges that the guy was an adventurer in life. Perhaps the reason lies in his father being an avid card player, who also sometimes carried out petty fraudulent schemes. By the way, Jason's father, 10 years before his son attacked the collector, also went missing. No one has been able to find him to this day. Later, reconstructing piece by piece the picture of what happened, the FBI learned that for a week Jason Brown lived in a hotel opposite the movie theater where the attack took place. On December 4, 5 days after the attack, the police had a warrant for Brown's arrest, but where could they look for it? Of course, you already understand that if this person is still on the FBI list, then he was never caught. But one significant thing is that at one point the FBI was incredibly close to catching him. The FBI believed that the man should be looked for at Workout's relatives in the state of California, and the FBI was indeed not mistaken. On December 6, the FBI arrived at the house of the fugitive's sister, but it turned out that they were literally half an hour late. There was a wildly ridiculous reason for what allowed Jason to escape. The bottom line is that the FBI didn't show their cards. They didn't tell the general public that Jason Brown was the #1 suspect in this case. According to the FBI, this was supposed to lull the fugitive's vigilance and make his capture easier. However, when it was decided to check Jason's relatives, the California police, without the consent of the FBI, for some reason held a press conference, where it was announced that Jason Brown was considered the one who killed the collector in Arizona. This press conference took place a couple of hours before the FBI arrived at Jason's sister, but he had already fled from there. In fact, with this press conference he was warned in advance about the FBI's visit. Jason's sister said he left the house in his BMW. This turned out to be a lie. In fact, he drove away in a Cadillac. This Cadillac was found abandoned approximately 6 months later. Then in April 2005, Jason Brown sent his brother several personal items, including the address and keys to the garage where Jason had left his BMW. This gift cost brother Jason 3 years, because later he was charged with concealing evidence, as he did not provide access to the escaped BMW. Immediately after he found out where it was, it is believed that he first hid all possible evidence inside the car and only then reported police that he received the BMW from his brother. For this, David Brown, Jason's older brother, received 3 years in prison. Here, it is also appropriate to recall the incident with the pickup truck that Jason damaged in the parking lot at the shooting range. As already mentioned, he promised the owner of the car to pay for the damage of $1,300, and he actually sent it after the robbery of the collector. On December 8, 2007, Jason Brown was named to the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list. As of 2022, he is still in it, already 15 years old. The last information available from Jason Brown was received in August 2008. Then in Utah, one of Brown's acquaintances accidentally saw him while stopping at a traffic light. Brown obviously realized that the man recognized him, because he did not wait for the green light and abruptly rushed to the red light. As a result, at this point, Jason Brown could be anywhere in the US, in Mexico, in Canada, or even outside the continent, in any French-speaking country. Here it is, the story of one of the most wanted people in the United States, a man for information about whom they give more money than he was able to steal.